Hi everybody. Thank you for taking a few minutes to watch this quick tutorial on structuring LifeReady classes. This tutorial is going to present a flexible class structure, and it will be presented in terms of 4 flexible class moves. And typically we want to think about a class, whether it's in a sort of traditional subject area, or if it's in an integrated course, or if it's in a block of time for 2 hours, or just for 45 minutes, to think about opening with a welcome and warm-up. And a warm-up can be some kind of activity or some kind of exercise, but it's really designed to transition students from one place they've been into your course. And then typically we believe that the next 10 minutes or so is the ideal time to introduce new learning. Maybe not every time, and certain classes will have certain intentions that might be different, but typically it's at this point that you might introduce new learning, and really that's about 10 minutes. And then there's breakout time, where students work together or individually. That's where you're available for coaching, tutoring, guidance, and just-in-time learning. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then the end of the class is the opportunity to bring groups back together for sharing, for reflecting, very important, for discussing, and for wrapping things up. So let's dig into these a little bit more. Warm them up. So at the start of any class, research suggests that it takes several minutes for students and teachers to transition from whatever space they were previously in, whether it's a class or something else, into this space so that they can be ready for new learning. You might want to retrieve what you did last class, have them write down everything that they can remember, or have them respond to a short prompt that activates that learning from last time and makes it available for new learning. You might want to use this time to reflect on homework. Maybe they do a short exercise where they share a question or a success or something like that. You might have a short assessment here. Some people will, sometimes this is the opportunity for a reading quiz or, some kind of activity to make sure they've done their work. That's fine. You might want to have this be an opportunity for them to do some reflective writing on essential questions for your course. The idea here is that you're giving them time and space to transition them for new learning. The one tip is don't use precious time to simply review homework. Oftentimes that can, you might intend it to take just a few minutes, but it can take up all that precious learning time at the top of class, which is what we're going to talk about next. There is nothing wrong with explicit teaching, and direct instruction can have powerful effects. When a knowledgeable teacher provides clear modeling and clear direct instruction, the conditions for strong learning are set to positive. As long as attention is captured and learner capacities are not exceeded, then powerful learning can occur in the classroom. And that's John Hattie, a very well-known researcher on strong effects in teaching. But, and this is important, and this is pretty widely known now, attention is a limited resource. Focus drops off after about 10 minutes or so of recitation. After that, overload factors come into play. So we know that there's only a certain amount of attention anybody, even on their best day, can give to direct instruction. So what happens now? We have a lot of learning to do, but we have a lot of class time, but we know that merely transmitting learning isn't as effective after 10 minutes as it is at the outset. Well, if you have critical information, we're going to ask you to flip that, right? Consider ways of flipping that, and that can be having students listen to a lecture or watch a video or read. A lot of this is, tried and true, right? You read some chapters, you come in and you work on those chapters. So consider flipping anything that's going to take longer than 10 minutes. Save your direct instruction for those items that really require you being there, transmitting that information in the classroom. What do we do during class then? We want to get them thinking, right? And Willingham, whose work is well known, is that a teacher's goal should almost always be to get students to think about meaning, because memory is the residue of thought. So we want classes that are thinking rich, that are active. It doesn't mean that kids have to be up running around physically, but their minds have to be active. And certain kinds of cues can be used to make sure that they're doing some really rich thinking, either individually or collectively. So what might you do? This is not an exhaustive list, but this can be some of what you pull from. And you want this to be about double the time of your direct instruction. Now, given your classroom time, you can be flexible. The big idea is that the lion's share of classwork should be kids doing the heavy cognitive lifting with you as an expert coaching. This is a time for formative assessment, when you can give them really focused, targeted assessments that will reveal what they do and don't understand, so that you can make plans for shifts in any instruction, or if you need to see students individually. And I would ask you to review the inputs on formative assessment in our previous module. This might be an opportunity for small groups to come together around a challenge and do some problem solving, applying the learning that you've been teaching. This might be an opportunity for worked examples and deliberate practice. Sometimes students really need to work through new learning, and deliberate practice is really the bedrock of how we push learning into long-term memory. I'm a big fan of thinking routines to construct and check for understanding. And I'll have another video in this course that gets into the value of thinking routines. These are really powerful ways to get the kids thinking, and for you to see what they do and don't understand. If we're working on projects in project-based learning, this is an excellent time for students to use really concentrated, focused time to work together. Often this is a great opportunity for just-in-time teaching. You might have a bit of direct instruction to get the class going, but then as students are working and they hit, things that they don't know or any roadblocks, you can do more short bursts of direct instruction right then and there. And then sometimes it is appropriate for them to do some homework. If you have things that you know that will carry on to home, you can get it started. And again, it's so much more valuable if you're in the room with them, whether you're in person or online. When you do a breakout, whether this is online or in person, when you have students work, be on call. Rotate through the room, rotate through Zoom rooms. But please be cognizant of the fact that simply giving them answers when they're struggling doesn't really help them learn. So give plenty of time for the productive struggle before you answer their questions. Very hard for me to do. And then finally, what happens at the end? It's a time for reflection. And again, research supports this important moment in classes for learning, when we pull together lots of new learning, make connections with prior learning. Sometimes this is done in the form of exit tickets, famous exit tickets like I used to think, but now I think, or writing down, one new idea that they have from the class and maybe a question that still remains. There are lots of different exit tickets, and I have some resources in this course for exactly that kind of activity. Or you can refer again to your essential questions for the course and have them reflect on how the learning that's happened in this class, the specific class, connects with the larger questions of the whole course or the unit. So again, a flexible structure for classes. The big idea is to make sure that students are creating and thinking as much as possible with your expert teaching at the ready for them. Thank you very much.